Welcome back everybody, Dan here, and thanks again for joining in for another video. And it is officially 2021, 2020 is behind us, and I hope that is going to be good news for everyone. Now, to start off for our channel, to start off this year, I'm actually going to be taking a look back at a piece of equipment that I think often gets overlooked a lot in sim racing. And I have my ideas for why that is, and I'll get into that further in the video. But basically what we're going to be looking at today is this particular Thrustmaster TS-XW wheelbase. But the things I'm going to be saying about it can apply to the TS-XW, obviously, also the TS-PC, which I had long-term for 3 years and use regularly. And also, I do believe most of what I will say, if not everything, will also apply to the Thrustmaster TGT, which is like a close cousin to the XW and the PC, although the outside looks a little bit different and it's licensed to PlayStation, where these are licensed to Xbox and PC only. But I do believe for the most part they are almost the same. But what I want to do is kind of give you my my argument for why I still think, even though these are kind of old tech now, they're going on 4 years old since the original TS-PC was released, so it's not the newest thing out there. I want to kind of give you my argument of why I think that they are still a pretty good value and something you should look at and not overlook, as many people do, when you are considering upgrading your wheel from, say, something like a T150, Logitech G29, T150, and maybe even possibly a Club Sport, but I'll get into that. Or not a Club Sport, no, the Club Sport is clearly better, but maybe a CSL Elite or something like that. But I'll get into all that as I get further in the video. But basically, I have my reasons, or I have my thoughts on why these get overlooked. And I think, unfortunately, and I'll just start the video out kind of with this, I think that Thrustmaster kind of has a bad rap with reliability and build quality. And that is due to their lower end wheelbases having a lot of issues. I've had TXs, I've had T300s. I personally did have issues where I had to have Thrustmaster send me out new wheelbases. Now, they were very fast to send me a replacement or fix the issue. But you still do hear a lot of horror stories about the T300s and lower Thrustmaster products having issues. And I think that's just due to these are all built to a certain cost. And you basically pay for, you get what you pay for. And because the T300s and even the T150s and things like that, they are much cheaper. And so they just generally by nature have less reliability. Unfortunately, Thrustmaster has kind of fallen into this category of having bad reliability. However, that being said, these TS-XWs / TS-PCs, and I'm sure the TGT as well, they are in a different league. This is a different ball game. They are built much better. They do not fall into the category of those lower end wheelbases by Thrustmaster that have a lot of issues. As a matter of fact, I've not really heard of anyone having any issues with the TS-PC or the TS-XW. For the most part, they are really reliable and are really good wheelbases for the money. So that's why I still think that they're probably often overlooked, because people just generally think Thrustmaster and are like, Thrustmaster's products are crap. But I'm giving you my honest opinion that I don't believe that the TS-PC, TS-XW fall into that category. I've had both T300 / TX. I've had those wheelbases open. I also had my old TS-PC open just to look inside and see what was in there. And you can visually see, even someone who's not like a gearhead as far as engineering and stuff like that, just the general person can look into both wheelbases. And you can really see that the quality of materials that they use in their quote-unquote high-end wheelbases are just much better. The wiring looks much better. The electronics look much better. And then not to mention, these use a much more reliable 40-watt brushless motor that is much more reliable and has a lot of constant force feedback. I've never had any issues with these wheelbases where they feel like they start to fade They're always strong, constant. And I just think that if you are considering upgrading your wheel, even still now in 2021, especially if you're a current Thrustmaster user and you're in the Thrustmaster ecosystem, and maybe you have a T300 or T150 or whatever, and you've already got something in their ecosystem, you should certainly consider one of these. Because they are really good. I know tons of people who still use them today and have had no issues with them. The TS-PC that I had previously, I used it for, like I said, probably over 3 years. I sold it secondhand to someone, and he's still using it today with no issues at all. So it is pretty good. Now, one thing I will say, and I think this is just a demand thing. For some reason, these are kind of hard to find right now. And so demand has driven the price up. When I bought my TS-PC, like I said, about 3 years ago or so, I think it was at the end of 2017. When I bought that wheelbase, it was right at $400. I think it was $399, but it came with the cheaper looking open wheel and just the wheelbase. When I purchased this one about a month and a half ago, this was the TS-XW Sparco Competition Package is what they called it. So it came with a licensed replica Sparco wheel, or they say it's a legit Sparco wheel. I guess it is. I've never had this in my car or anything, or one of these Sparco wheels in my car, so I can't say that it is, but they say this is a replica and licensed Sparco wheel, and it's also came with pedals. So it was actually $699, which I think is a little bit high, but I think that just has to do with the that they're just not available. I mean, I looked for a while, and I looked, and finally I found this package I was able to buy from B&H Photo of all places. I couldn't even find it on Amazon. So, because I think there is kind of a demand compared to how much is available out there, it is driving the price up. But what I keep in mind is that I've seen them fluctuate over the years. They go up, they come down, they go up, and they come down. But yeah, if, the long and short of it is, if you are looking for a wheelbase, and you're not ready to make the jump to a direct drive, because clearly a direct drive wheel is going to be better, okay? But if you're not quite ready to make the jump to a direct drive wheel, definitely see if you can find somebody who owns one of these. Try it out. They're really smooth wheels. They're quiet. And again, they are way more reliable than what people typically think a Thrustmaster wheelbase is. And that's just because they are built much better. Now, one thing I'll mention is if you are a Xbox user, you're definitely going to want to get the XW, because that's the only one, the TS-XW, because that is the only one that is this one. That's the only one that is compatible with PC and Xbox. The TS-PC is only compatible with the PC, and again, you'd have to get the TGT, which I can't find them anywhere. But if you could manage to find one, that's the one you would need to get to run with the PlayStation. But mainly I only run on the PC. So what I generally say is typically, has to do with using it on the PC. There are a few things that I don't like about this wheelbase. One is the color. I kind of cringe when I look at the color. I do not like this bright red burgundy color. It is not my cup of tea. I would have much preferred to get the TS-PC that comes in more of a not as bright looking color. It's gray on the top and then black everywhere else, whereas this one is black and this bright red or burgundy. I'm not a big fan of it, but I did like the fact that it came with this licensed Sparco wheel as well as a set of pedals, so that I had, a setup to use out the gate, and then I would slowly upgrade things from there. And so, so I just wanted to kind of give some love to Thrustmaster's top tier wheelbases, because they are often overlooked. And I think a lot of people just automatically assume that they're not good, because unfortunately Thrustmaster has a lot of issues with reliability with their lower end equipment. But that's just not the case with these. These are really good. They're really quiet. It is a belt driven wheel, so it's not going to be as strong as a direct drive wheel. But this one, according to Thrustmaster, produces, I believe, 6 Newton meters of torque. And if you want to kind of judge where that is, that falls slightly above the Fanatec CSL Elite and slightly below the Club Sport V2.5. However, I have used both. I've used this extensively, and I've never owned a Club Sport, but I've tested them quite a few times. And I cannot see a huge difference between the Club Sport and these TS wheelbases, honestly. I think that the Club Sports are rated about 7 or 8 Newton meters of torque, but I don't know if that's like burst torque or if that's extended period of time, because this feels like it can offer the maximum strength all the time, whereas the Club Sport almost seemed like it could give you little bursts of really strong force feedback, but it couldn't continue that. So I haven't had a long-term extensive testing of that, so take that with a grain of salt. But what I can say is that these wheelbases have been phenomenal. And I'll kind of end it off with this. I used a direct drive wheel for a long time. And when it was time for me to come back and spend my own money on building a new setup from scratch, I knew without much thought that I was going to go with another either TS-PC like I had before, or this one because I did like the Sparco wheel. So that should tell you right there that, I went and spent my own money and purchased this wheelbase because I knew its value to me. So I wanted to share that with you guys in case you are out there looking to upgrade your wheelbases. The Thrustmaster TS-PC TS-XW, you really can't go wrong with them unless you're just literally looking for a direct drive wheel. If you need 20 Newton meters of torque, 25, 30, whatever, for a direct drive wheel, then by all means, you're probably going to want to skip this because it can only offer 6, which is a huge difference. And it is a noticeable difference. If you were to go from this to a direct drive wheel like I did, it is a noticeable difference in torque. But is it necessary? I don't think so, which is why when it was time for me to spend my own money, like I said, I went back to this. So I just wanted to give these a little love. This is not a sponsored video, anything like that. I literally bought this. I paid $6.99 for this setup about a month and a half ago, and I just forgot how much that I enjoyed using this wheelbase. And so I wanted to share that with you. And the other thing that I just recalled, I had some notes in my mind that I wanted to say, and I just remembered something else. It was a breath of fresh air to go back to, and I guess this is probably across the board for any one of the mainstream wheelbases. This is not specific to the Thrustmaster TS-PC or Thrustmaster at all. I believe it's just going to be belt-driven mainstream wheels going from a direct drive wheel, which takes a tremendous amount of setup time to get it to work properly with all sims. And if I'm honest, I couldn't ever get my wheel to work perfectly in my mind with all sims. Some sims, I just couldn't ever get it right. But it is a breath of fresh air to come back to a belt-driven wheel like this that has built-in profiles by the developers in-game, so you can literally use it, plug and play. Now, that is a huge thing for me, for someone who doesn't have a lot of time. And again, that's not specific to Thrustmaster or the specific wheelbase, but that's just something to keep in mind if you're considering going to a direct drive wheel. There is a considerable more amount of time setting the wheel up, whereas if you just get something like this, you can just hop right in and start racing. So that's something to consider. But yeah, I feel like these just do not get enough love, and they are overlooked a lot, and frankly, I don't like that because they're a really good wheelbase. So also, if you could find one secondhand for cheap, I wouldn't be afraid to buy them because they are very reliable. So let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you use one of these? Have you ever used one? Have you considered it? Are you one of the people who decided not to go with one of these because you're afraid of Thrustmaster's reliability? Let me know what you think in the comments below, but I'm telling you, the reliability of their upper tier wheelbases such as these, it has much more build quality and a much longer reliability in life. So hopefully that helps you guys out in your choices in going and looking for new wheelbases. As always, guys, I hope that 2021 is, or not as always, but I hope that 2021 is great for everybody. It's a good year compared to last year. 2020 sucked. So I hope that 2021 is great for everybody. And as always, guys, I thank you so much for watching the video. Thanks for joining in with me. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video. We'll see you later.